If you ever felt like you're really good at being someone you don't recognize anymore, this is for you.
You know what no one tells you about being on TV? It's that the moment you start performing, you start disappearing. I was loud, tried to be polished, camera ready, travel, food, studio, lights, crew, energy up here. But underneath, I couldn't hear my real voice anymore. And of course, I didn't know this at the time. And when I finally walked away and said goodbye to that chapter, I thought I was free. But here's what I discovered. Finding your authentic voice isn't about speaking differently or leaving a job. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. You wake up one day and realize that you've been playing a character for so long that you forgot who you were underneath. If you've been wondering why your life feels disconnected, maybe it's because the voice you're using isn't yours. Have you ever felt that? Like you're really good at being someone, but you're not sure who? I do. But when I came to YouTube, this was one of the hardest things I've done because things had changed. I had changed. And while I was preparing my content to share it with you, I noticed that I brought the same old voice with me. I actually had not left it behind. So this is the story of how I had to unlearn all of it just to sound like myself again. And maybe you are in that place too. So thank you for being here. On live TV, everything was a performance. You had 3 minutes to cook, to smile, to educate, to entertain. And even when your smile wasn't real, especially then you had to smile. I remember this one morning, I'd gotten maybe 3 hours of sleep and a friend had been sick. And I spent the whole night worrying. I mean, you know how it is when somebody you care about is going through something tough. And so at 6:00 a.m., I was supposed to be the cheerful person about a new restaurant downtown. Of course, I put on the smile, I found the energy, and I became the guy who gets excited about truffle fries, and I will never forget that. And you know, I was good at it because I learned how to not be at ease and deliver anyway. And maybe you know this feeling, the meeting where you're supposed to be on even when you're not, the presentation where you smile through the stress, the client call where you project confidence you don't feel. Back then, it seemed so easier for me to light up a room even when I was burned out inside. I could sound cheerful while something in me was slowly shutting down. And I could make small talk with whomever, whenever, while my real thoughts were somewhere else entirely. Why? Well, because that's what you do. That's what the role demanded. TV wanted captivating, not human. TV wanted consistent, not real. The same person every single day, regardless of what was happening in your actual life. But here's the thing. It's not just TV. Every industry has its own performance. The confident entrepreneur who can't show doubt. The composed leader who can't admit uncertainty. The successful professional who can't have days off. And listen, I get it. As a business owner, one must do what is necessary to offer the services that we promise. And one has those expectations of everyone. People I work with and myself. And I've been to both sides of the same coin. This is as old as civilization itself because the ancient Greeks had a word, persona, literally meaning mask. They knew that what we show the world often covers who we really are. But what happens when you can't take off the mask anymore? You get the version of you that's sold, not the version that questioned things, not the version that had bad days, not the version that sometimes didn't have the answers. You became a product in a suit, and after a while, you just start to believe that that's all you are. It happened to me. But what happens when the role you've mastered starts to feel like a prison? Then, I got rugged. No more projects, productions canceled all across the board, and I didn't leave dramatically, not with some big speech or a party. It all just stopped. And in that uncertainty, I kept reaching for what I knew. You know, the same energy, the same voice, the same version of myself, because at least that felt familiar. Do you ever find yourself reaching for old habits just out of habit? Well, that's what happened to me. And later, when I came to YouTube, I brought that same voice, the same pace, the same desperate energy, and I still have a little of it. But the performer returned, only that this time he didn't fit. It was like wearing clothes that used to feel good and powerful, but now felt like a Halloween costume in February. Wrong season, wrong context, wrong everything. I recorded video after video, same inflection, same gestures, same everything, and I watched them back thinking, Lord, who is this guy yelling into a void? And why am I trying so hard to impress a camera when I don't even recognize my own voice anymore? You know what's strange about that? Muscle memory. It doesn't care if the muscles don't want to move that way anymore, but your body remembers how to be someone you're not. And I realized that's exactly what I was doing. I was like a musician trying to play songs from a band they left years ago. The fingers remember the chords, but the heart's just not in it anymore. And then I realized that I was chasing a version of myself that I had outgrown, trying to resurrect something I had buried, and for good reason. You know that feeling when you visit your old high school, everything's smaller than you remember? The hallways that used to feel infinite now feel narrow. You can walk through them, but you just don't belong there anymore. And that's exactly what my voice sounded to me. Familiar, but not true. Recognizable, just not real. I had outgrown the act, but I hadn't yet learned how to just be me. You ever been caught between who you were and who you're becoming? That space is pretty uncomfortable, and I know. But maybe it's where the real work happens. So I stopped performing. Not all at once, of course. You can't just flip a switch on years of conditioning. But gradually, I began to take things apart, the volume, the posture, the delivery, the need to fill every silence with something clever. I stopped just trying to reach everyone, and I started to have real conversations. The kind where you're not performing, the kind where pauses are okay, the kind where you can admit that you don't have all the answers and you're still getting better. Instead of projecting to the back row, I started speaking like we were in the same room, like now. Sometimes we need to speak slower. Sometimes we just need to pause and think. Sometimes your voice cracks, and that's exactly what the moment needed. It's okay, because perfection becomes the enemy of connection. Let me repeat that again. Perfection becomes the enemy of connection. It's like a musician who spent years playing stadiums, suddenly finding themselves in a small venue, learning that intimacy requires a completely different approach. I stopped trying to hit the old notes and started listening for real harmony. And you know what? The crazy thing is that when you stop performing yourself, people can actually see you. When you stop trying to be impressive, you start being memorable. When you stop chasing engagement, you start creating connection. Here's what the industry won't tell you. Being more than you are is exhausting. That's how they make money, convincing you that you're not enough yet. But here's what I didn't expect when I finally found my real voice. It wasn't quieter because it was weaker. It was quieter because it was confident enough not to shout. Every platform, every guru, every course wants to convince you that louder is better, that faster is better, the more energetic, the more consistent, the more engaging is the answer. Study the successful people, copy their formulas. But that chase will drain you, not just your energy, but your actual self. So what if you focused on being clearer instead of louder? What if you chose honesty over entertainment? Because when you're honest, like really honest, people don't just listen, they stay. Not for the sparkle, not for the entertainment, but for the truth. And truth, my friends, it turns out is the rarest thing on the internet. YouTube didn't teach me how to edit a video. It taught me how to show up without applause, without validation, without the safety net of a role to hide behind. It stripped away the performance and gave me back my voice, my actual voice, the one I've been covering up for years. And here's what you can do. This week, just notice. Notice when you're performing versus when you're just being yourself. Don't try to change anything yet. Just pay attention to the difference. That awareness, that's where it starts, my friend. So if you're trying to find your voice in business, in content, in life, start by letting go of those that aren't yours anymore. You don't need to sound like the people you admire. You don't need to compete with charisma. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room. You need to sit with your story long enough that it starts to speak through you instead of you trying to wrestle it into submission. Talk like you're sitting across from someone that you genuinely care about. Pause like their silence matters too. Share like you're not trying to prove anything. Because someone out there, someone right now, is tired of being sold to. They're tired of being entertained to death. I mean, what would it feel like to hear a voice that wasn't trying to convince you of anything, just willing to share what's real? And you know what? That's the voice I'm using right now because it is quieter than before, less polished for sure, but more real. And it sounds like me, finally sounds like me. If this hits home, if you're in the middle of your own shift, trying to reinvent yourself, how you show up in the world, or just trying to remember who you were before everyone told you who to be, you're not alone in this. I'm still walking that same road, still learning how to be myself in public, still figuring out what authentic actually means when there's a camera involved, like right now. But here's what's changed. I used to fear that being myself wasn't enough. Now I know that being myself is the only thing that's ever been enough. The voice you're looking for, it's already there. It's just been waiting for you to stop performing long enough to hear it again. I had to do that. And when you do find it, when you finally speak from that place, you'll wonder how you ever thought anything else was worth saying.